He got that.
I get this.
Yeah, those
He always just pulls him out randomly.
Maybe this joke. Maybe this joke to somebody. I know we say Hashem is everywhere.
Okay, can I have your attention, my friends? Shmuel Beis, Perek Hey, page 11. The story is that David's only rival, wouldn't say enemy, David's only rival for his control over all the tribes of Israel is Ishbosheth. Right? The only other descendant of Shaul is a young boy who is crippled, who will appear later on in the story, and his one rival has just been assassinated, murdered by Rechav and Baana.
I don't remember the cripple's name, but he's the only other descendant of Shaul.
Far as I know. No, yes, there are others. Correct. Yeah, there are others. Yeah, yes, there are.
Esther descended from Shaul.
Ah, yeah, for sure. No, so what? She could be from Mephibosheth. That's not a question. She could be from the cripple. Cripples can have children.
Yeah, true.
Right. Yeah, there are other grandchildren as well, right? But he's the only other rival for the throne, and he is not a real rival. The one rival who was Ishbosheth, who was on the throne in the northern kingdom over the other tribes, had just been murdered by Rechav and Baana, and David had them killed for their assassinating.
Ishbosheth.
Right, he's gone. Okay? And now...
Did it say how long he lasted for?
Well, it's unclear. David's reign, before he reigned over all the people, was 7.5 years.
Yeah.
It says that Ishbosheth reigned for 2 years. The question is, what are the other 5.5 years doing? What happened? So one explanation would be to say it took him. Hello? Shalom Aleichem, Baruch haba. Who are you? What's your name?
Zachary Gold.
Again?
Zachary Gold.
Zach. Okay, take a copy if you want to join the Shmuel base class. And we need one for, I forgot his name. Don't tell me.
There's one right here.
Aviad Sam Shalom. Got one. Okay.
Someone here?
No.
What were we talking about?
His rival, 7 years.
Yes. How do you feel in those 7.5? You hear the question? Between the death of Shaul and David's reign over the whole country was 7.5 years. It says very, very clearly. We're going to get there in the two groups. David was king 7.5 years in Hebron. Yeah, and another passage earlier it says the Ishbosheth were king for 2 years. So there's 5.5 years missing from the story. So that either means that it took him 5.5 years before he became king, because we know that Ishbosheth didn't immediately become king over all the tribes. It says first this one and that one. That could have taken 5 years. Yeah. Or it's the other way around. It took him quite 6 months to become king over the whole country, but the other 5 years at the end were his dwindling power as Avner got more power and people became more loyal to David, and eventually he was assassinated at the end of that period, and that's how you fill it in. I think those are two acceptable ways of seeing it. It's really a bit unclear. Okay, so now he has been killed, and his head, which was decapitated by his murderers, was buried next to the grave of Avner, who had been killed, assassinated by Yoav to avenge the blood of Asael, who'd been killed by Avner. Okay, a lot of complicated, vendettas against different people over here. Okay, all right. Perikei, Vayavo Kol Shivtei Yisrael, and all the tribes. A shevet is a tribe, or literally a shevet is a stick. Okay, Shivtecha umishantecha heima yenachamune. Shivtecha means a stick. Okay, what's the connection between a tribe and a stick? You could think. I saw just recently the connection is because a tribe is like a branch of a tree. If we look at the Jewish people as a tree, right, and the branches that break off are the sticks, which are the tribes of the Jewish people. That's what's the same word, mateh. Oh, also the word mateh is another word for tribe, and it also means a stick, right? And the Moshe Rabbeinu's stick is called a mateh. So there's two words for stick, and both of those words mean tribe. Why the two words for stick? That's another question. But there are two different words. Right. All right. But that also means what that means. The tribe? Yes, sir. Okay. All the tribes of Israel came El David to David, Hebron to Hebron. Now, I don't know if that means all the Jews turned up or representatives of each tribe. Right? It means there was no tribes missing. Right? It doesn't say all the Jews were there. All the tribes were represented at this gathering in Hebron. Hebron to Hebron, which was David's capital, and has been like that for 7.5 years as he was king over the tribe of Yehuda. Page 11. Vayoimru Lamar, they said as follows. Lemor is usually a quote. Lemor is the way in Hebrew you say quotation marks. This is where the quotation starts. Hinenu means behold we. Hine means behold. Hineni means behold I. Hinenu, behold we. Right? The suffix of the end means we. Hinenu atzmacha. We are your bone, I suppose. Yeah. Etzem is the bone. Uvesarcha, and your flesh. In Hebrew we say flesh and bones. In English, that's in English. In Hebrew we say bones and flesh. The other way around. It means the same thing. It means we're all related. That's the point. Yes, we're different tribes, but we're all related. Anachnu, we are. Behold, we are your flesh and blood. We are all related. And therefore we want to be part of it. There's no reason why we shouldn't be part of one kingdom. Gam etmol, also yesterday. Gam shilsham, also.
3 years ago.
Good. It really means 2 days ago, right? The reason why the word 3 is used is because today counts as number 1. So yesterday is 2, and 2 days ago is 3. So 2 days ago in Hebrew is called shilsham. Esmo is yesterday. So since even yesterday and even the day before, which means in the past, Shaul HaMelech, when Shaul was the king, which is 7.5 years earlier, when he was king Aleinu over us, even back then, Atah Yisa, page 12, you were Hamotzi v'Hamevi. Hamotzi means nothing to do with bread. Hamotzi means, well, it's the same word. He who takes out. So you were the one who took out, the Hamevi, and the one who would bring in, opposite of take out, Es Yisrael, the Jewish people. Means you were a high-ranking general in Shaul's army, and you were the one who took the troops out to war, and the one who brought them back. And therefore, we were loyal to you then, and we see how good you are, and God is on your side, and we really would like you to. The only reason why we weren't up to now is because, what's his name, Avner, convinced us that there was a prophecy, which, the way he interpreted it, meant that we should continue being loyal to Shaul. But now that Shaul's son is dead, and there's no reason why we shouldn't join you. God said to you, Ata tire esami, you shall something my people. Anyone know what that word?
Shepherd.
Very good. God. You shall shepherd my people. Tire from the word ro'eh with an ayin, not ro'eh with an aleph. Ro'eh with an ayin is a shepherd, as in Hashem ro'i lo echsal. Lord is my shepherd. And me. So God has told you, not told you now, but He told you in the past that you shall shepherd my people Israel. Ve'ata tiyeh lenogin, and you shall be a ruler. It's a synonym with a king. I'm not sure why you don't say the word melech. Al Yisrael, over Israel. So Nagid is like a prince or a ruler. That's similar to a king. So God had told you in the past that you would shepherd my people. I suppose that means to be a spiritual leader. You'll be the political leader. And we heard this prophecy. Remember we made the Malbim said that on Shmuel HaNavi's deathbed, he made it public that he had anointed David to be the next king. But we knew that all along, but we had taken Avner's claims into consideration. Okay, that was the message of the first meeting of the representatives of the tribes. Vayavo kol ziknei Yisrael, all the elders of Israel. So this is another group of people who are not really representatives of the tribes. The elders of Israel are
Sanhedrin.
The Sanhedrin, probably, right? They're the elders, as in experienced Talmidei Chachamim. So they also came to accept David as their king, because they're really the ones who have to make this decision. But Yavo kol ziknei, they have the power. All the elders of Israel came El HaMelech to the king Hebron. Hebron, Vayichros lahem HaMelech David bris, and David cut with them a deal or a covenant. Bechevron, he made a deal with them. What would the deal be? I'll be your king, you'll be my subjects. I'll look after you, and you will fight in my wars. Whatever. Well, the deals that is between the agreement, a two-sided agreement between the people and the king. They didn't have to accept him as their king, so they had to come to an agreement on what the terms will be. The terms will obviously be the laws of the Torah, but they were just writing it out as it would be. We had this when Shaul was king as well. They wrote out all the conditions of what it means to be a king. My responsibility to the people's responsibility to me to be able to help me run the country. Okay? So that's what he did. Lifnei Hashem, in front of Hashem. I don't know, we have that expression all the time. We're not sure what it means. Right? Simply would mean they went to the Mishkan, right? It says it was in Hebron.
Yeah.
Mishkan wasn't in Hebron. The Mishkan was not in Nov anymore because they were killed by Shaul. It moved to where did it move after Nov? It was in Givon. Nov was the king. Against the Givon. Nov Irakonim moved to Givon. It moved to Givon. That's what it was in the times of the beginning of Malachim. It was in Givon. So it doesn't mean they went to Givon. It could mean they brought the ark, because the ark wasn't in Givon. The ark wasn't in the Mishkan at the moment. The ark was in a place called Kiryat Yearim, being looked after by, I can't remember, Oved Edom Magiti. I think that was the word. The person who was looking after it. Somebody there was looking after the ark, and that was later on. Anyway, there was a person there appointed to look after it. So it could mean they brought the ark from there. It could mean that. Or it could just mean that they made Tehillim gathering or something spiritual to make this. It wasn't just a party, right? This was, they went to shul and they said some Tehillim or they read Kriyas HaTorah and they made something spiritual event. You know, just like if you elect the chief rabbi. So you could, that's Lifnei Hashem. Where do they do it? They do it in Arba and in shuls over here, right? But when you elect the president, they do that in the Knesset. So that's not Lifnei Hashem, that's in the Knesset. But you know, it could be in a Sefer Torah. It's hard to believe they brought the ark from Kiryat Yearim in order to do this. It could be. Okay. Lifnei Hashem. Yimshechu es David, and they anointed David the Melech and Israel as king over Israel. We mentioned that usually we don't anoint kings. That's if they're the sons of the previous king, but David wasn't the son of anybody, son of Yishai, and so he's anointed by the people. Okay. So now David is now king over all the tribes. The whole kingdom is united, which is a very nice idea for getting ready for Shavuos, right? All the Jews are united, and we have now the king. Ben Shloshim Shana David b'Malchai. David was 30 years old. That's how you say it. The son of 30 means 30 years old when he became king. So this is an important fact because
when he became king over everything.
No, it doesn't mean that. It means from the beginning of saying second. He was 30 when he became king. Maybe it's not explicit, but that's certainly how it's understood. Yeah? He said he became king from the beginning. And since the Pasuk says that Shaul's reign was for 2 years, right? That's what it says. Whether you believe that or not, I'm not sure. That's up to you, right? Yeah. But that's what it says. And if you take that literally, that means that David was 28 at the beginning of Shaul's reign. So any picture that shows you this little kid throwing this rock at Goliath is not based on fact, because he was at least 28 at the time. Sometime during Shaul's reign, he killed Goliath, and within 2 years he became king. So he couldn't have been less than 28. Okay. Ben Shloshim Shana b'Malcha Arba'im Shana Malach. He was king for 40 years. So from that we work out how old was he when he died? Well, assuming that he died just before he stopped being king when he died. He was 70 years old when he died. In actual fact, when did he die?
When did he die?
Yes, on Shavuos.
Right.
That's the yahrzeit of David HaMelech. That's tradition has it he died on Shavuos, and he born as well. Born on Shavuos as well. That's the assumption that tzaddikim born and die on the same day. Okay, so that is tomorrow night. The yahrzeit of David, and there's a lot of pilgrimage. People go to the kever that is assumed to be David's kever. Chevra b'chevra malach. I'm trying to be very politically correct when I speak. B'chevron malach ad Yehuda. David reigned in Hebron over the tribe of Yehuda, Sheva Shanim, Shisha Chadashim, 7 years and 6 months. Yerushalayim, Malach, and in Yerushalayim he was king. That's sort of summarizing. You don't know anything about Yerushalayim. We haven't done anything, but that's the summary. He was king there for 30 Shaloshim, Shalosh Shana, 33 years. I presume it means 32 and a half, because otherwise there's a half missing, right? So why wasn't it rounded? Why doesn't it say it? I don't know. I'll call Israel over all Israel, Yehuda and Yehuda. Because maybe Roma was a little bit less than half a year, was a bit more than half, and together was exactly 40 years, and maybe it was a bit more, I don't know. Anyway, that's what it says, 33. Over Yisrael and Yehuda, Yisrael referring to the other tribes.
So weird that where like in the first part it said he reigned over Yehuda in Hebron for 7 years, 6 months, and now it's saying in Jerusalem.
It doesn't say, very good. It says the town first, and the over who it was second. Very interesting nuance. Chevra Malach al Yehuda Sheva Shanim, Yerushalayim Malach.
Saul was born in Rosh
No, why? Say this. Hebron Malach al Yehuda. Yerushalayim Malach. It says the number of years.
I went to Martin special days.
Malach al Yehuda Shem Malach al Kansu. Okay, sort of thing the Malbim will go into. Okay, so remind me to look it up. Okay, so now that's the end of the first part of this chapter. Now we're going to conquer Yerushalayim. Okay, we're going to conquer Yerushalayim. Okay, when this was now, there's a big problem. Why was Yerushalayim not already conquered? Right, Yerushalayim was the central part of the country. How come, like all around Yerushalayim was already being conquered by Yehoshua and by the Shoftim? For some not so clear reason, Yerushalayim was still left. The truth is that Yeshua conquered Yerushalayim as well. If you look in the book of Yeshua, somewhere I can't remember, it says Yeshua conquered Yerushalayim. It would seem that there's different parts of Yerushalayim that it's referring to. That means there's even in the ancient times there were different parts. We even had two cities which were joined together. One was called Shalem,
East Jerusalem,
right? One was called Shalem, which Melchizedek was the king of. Remember in the Chumash, when Avraham Avinu went to battle, the 4 kings against the 5 kings, after he comes back from the second battle against the 4 kings, he's greeted by Melchizedek, the king of Shalem. Okay, so there's a town called Shalem, or Salem, as it would be pronounced in English American. Salem.
Witch trials.
Right? What?
The witch trials.
Right. So Salem comes from Shalem. That's what it is. Like Jerusalem, as in Salem.
What?
Now, there's another town called Yeru.
I'm from the town that's next to Borders.
There's another town called Yeru. Where's the town of Yeru? That's the Temple Mount. And who gave it the name Yeru? Avraham Avinu called it that after the Akedah. The Akedah was on the Temple Mount. And there Avraham Avinu said that God should see this place and people will come to this place and fear God. So that name Yeru, which means to see and be feared, not sure what you mean, that was to now when these 2 towns, one was Salem and one was Yeru, became united into one town, they called it Yerushalem. Just like Budapest. Used to be 2 cities, one Buda and one Pest, on 2 opposite sides of the Danube, I presume. Yes, thank you, Rasha. Right? So when it was joined, it became just like Tel Aviv Yafo. Right? It's 2 towns and now become one big metropolitan area called Tel Aviv Yafo. So it's the same thing. So now, it's very possible that when he says Yeshua conquered Yerushalayim, it means a certain part of Yerushalayim. For some strange reason, they didn't conquer it, which is strange, really strange. Well, it's an enclave, a small enclave, just a Temple Mount, it would seem, or that sort of area, maybe down here as well, right? And that was not conquered by Yeshua, Gidon, Devaira, even Shaul HaMelech, who's fighting Amalek and Pelishtim and Ammon and Moab and so many different people he's fighting, and this little village top, right, of Yerushalayim, which is all it is. Right? Today it's got 1 million inhabitants, but was this little area around this spring here was not conquered. Why? So, Chazal say the following interesting observation, which will relate to this story later on as well, we'll see. It needs explaining, but that's what they say. That Yitzchak and Avraham made a peace treaty with Avimelech, the king of Pelishtim. Avraham Avinu made the original treaty, and Yitzchak ratified and repeated this treaty. And the treaty was that we will be at peace with each other, we will not harm each other, not you, and not my children, not my grandchildren, and not my great-grandchildren. And that seems to be the text. Okay? Chazal suggest that, or Chazal say, that at the time when Yeshua conquered Eretz Yisrael, there was still descendants of Avimelech who were still under the protection of this peace treaty which the Jewish people couldn't violate. And they'd moved, some of them had moved from Avimelech, who was the king of Pelishtim, and now taken over the area of the Temple Mount in that part of Yerushalayim, which was actually called Yevus, right? The Jebusite. They were Canaanite people who were somehow connected with Avimelech, and therefore Yeshua said, what can we do? They had this peace treaty, you gotta leave us alone. And that's why they were under the protection of this treaty.
So what does it say?
They still call it Yevus. I once was walking just a minute through the old city. There was a group of Arabs walking up, and they were chanting Yevus, Yevus, Yevus. There must be some connection to their claim to the Temple Mount, because that's the original people who King David drove out. Yes, what was your question?
If that's true, then why did Yeshua conquer
He did. He conquered the different. He conquered the area of Yerushalayim which wasn't under Yevus control. But the Yevusim were descendants of Rabbi Melech, and therefore they had to leave it. And at this point in the story, the last remaining great grandchild of Rabbi Melech died, and now we could go and conquer it without any problem. That is Hazal's take on the story. Okay. Now you'll see how it plays a role in the story as well. Okay. So what happened? David wants to make Yerushalayim his capital city. Why? That's a good question. Look, it was traditionally known as a very special place, the gateway to heaven. It's where the Akedah took place. Even Melchizedek, who lived there for a good reason, it's actually, I think, strategically a very strange place to make a capital city.
It's not on the coast.
Like it's not on a route, on a trade route.
It's on a trade
on the
route.
coast, right? It's like a really city place.
It's on top of the mountain.
So
It's what?
Other
Top of the
place.
mountain.
Yeah, but what? So what?
Everywhere.
But no, but it has to be a reason to. You're right. Once you're making it in this place, you have the fortress on top of the mountain. But why would you make things in the first place? What's here?
It's rather smart depending on which way you're coming from.
It's what?
Rather smart depending on which way you're coming from.
What do you mean?
If you're coming from the left, if you're coming from the south, and you want to go up to Jordan, you have to go up. You have to go up. So you
No, but you go on Krish Tishim, which goes on the Jordan, right? And there's the two coast roads, and there's another road. This road, like there's also the Krishesh, which goes, but Yerushalayim, like why? I mean, I think the reason is the spiritual center of the world.
Yeah.
And people knew that. That's why, for example, Melchizedek was a priest and he lived here. Because they knew traditionally.
There was a trade route that goes through Yerushalayim.
Yeah, well, because they built Yerushalayim. That's the question. But it's going through the mountains.
Right.
You have to. Once you make Yerushalayim here, then you have to have roads to get to it. But why would you pick this as your capital?
Right.
Unless it was, like abundant and anything.
Well, defensively, it's
What?
Defensively, it's strategic.
Yeah, but that's
Yeah,
not,
but
that's not
if you want to
specific
look after the place that's built,
Right?
there.
No, of course.
It's not specific to
So we're the other way around.
It's the mountains, the whole country, basically.
Anyway, so
Right.
it could be, like I say, we traditionally believe there were many events that took place there beforehand. Adam HaRishon was created from the soil, and the world was created from a place. So spiritually, it's the place where the heavens kiss the earth. So obviously, you're going to build a spiritual center here, even if you're not Jewish. Yes?
What's the pasuk where Yaakov says like the Dati Shema?
Right.
What's
That's exactly what it was. Achein, this is a Shara Shamayim.
Right.
Right, so again, that was also traditionally assumed to be the Temple Mount. Okay, the Akedah took place there. So Noach built a Mizbeach. Cain and Hevel, the Mizbeach that they built and fought over was on the Temple Mount. Again, these are all part of Jewish tradition. So if you believe that, then it makes sense, and the spiritual energy of this place requires making a big deal out of it.
What did Noah build there?
Is that
His altar? Or?
The altar that he built after he left
I see.
it. So all these, it's a long way from Ararat. I agree, but it was fit. He did hike all the way to Yerushalayim. Then he built his.
Didn't Balaam also sacrifice all of his?
Who?
Balaam.
Not here.
Wasn't it around the city?
Not in Yerushalayim. He was in the Moabite desert.
And then
Yeah.
So David understands that he wants to build his capital. He wants to build a temple there. He wants his capital, his palace to be near, and that will be the administrative capital of Israel. That's what he wants. So I heard somebody say it was also politically sensible because it was the only town that was shared. It means if you look at the maps of the division of the country in Yoshua, before anyone picked Yerushalayim to be the capital, it was a city that was divided between Binyamin and Yehuda. As far as you know, it was the only city that talks about that. It's described in detail how the border went through Yerushalayim, so that we are sitting in the area of Yehuda, whereas the Temple Mount is in the tribe of Binyamin. And since David was trying to unite these two major aspects of the kingdom, Yehuda was obviously his tribe, Binyamin was the tribe of Shaul. So making his capital in this united Yerushalayim, united of these two tribes, would be a politically sensible move. Okay, could also be. Anyway, that's where he decided to go. He's going to make Yerushalayim his capital. Right? He knows Yerushalayim is meant to be the place of the base of Mikdash, because we mentioned on the day that he ran away, when he climbed out of the window, his wife let him down through the window, and he ran to Shaul. So I'll say on that night, he stayed up all night discussing with Shmuel HaNavi where to build the base of Mikdash. So David had thought it would be built somewhere near Hebron, which is one of the highest. It's called Ein Eitam, which is the highest the source of the spring of the aqueduct that goes through the new building. Right? The source of that water comes from Ein Eitam, which is much higher, about several tens of meters higher than the Temple Mount. But Shmuel HaNavi explained that the Temple Mount is not meant to be on the highest mountain, it's meant to be lower than the highest mountain based on whatever. So David knew the Temple Mount is meant to be, the temple is meant to be built in Yerushalayim, so that's probably also part of his decision. So we have to go on concrete, okay? They're not going to just give in, even if they don't have a peace treaty anymore to rely on, you've got to fight for it. So that's what they did. The king and his men, that means his troops, Yerushalayim to Yerushalayim. Notice, Yerushalayim is always spelled without a yud at the end. I think there were 785 places, not that I've counted them, no, right? Something like that, of the word Yerushalayim appears in Tanach, and in all but 3 of them, it's written without a second yud. So although today it's usually written Yerushalayim with a yud, but it's actually spelled Yerushalayim, which makes more sense because it's made from 2 words, Yeru and Shalem, right? Not Shalayim. Where does the Shalayim come from? Right?
The ayim suffix means 2 of something.
Good, no, go carry on.
So I don't know where to go. But the other 3 times in the Tanakh.
Yeah, I know the 3 times.
Imply that there's some,
There's some other Yerushalayim. There's 2 towns. There's twin towns. You know what twin towns? Yeah, I don't mean twin towns. They twin a town with another town.
I think we meant Twin Tower.
Yes. So my wife told me that in her Navi class, she asked one of the teachers. One of the girls asked the teacher, and the teacher said, "I don't know." Asked the next rabbi. The next rabbi who came in, he was like, he knew this stuff without Google or search things. So we're talking about 45 years ago. Okay? And he told them on the spot, yeah, you're right, every time it's without a yud, there's 3 places with a yud, and each time it's hinting to Yerushalayim Shel Ma'ala. There is a concept, whatever that means, that there is another Yerushalayim in heaven, and there's a Beis HaMikdash in heaven, and there is a Mizbeach in heaven, which Michael, the Malach, brings sacrifices on. Okay, so if you can get your head around that, then there is a place called Yerushalayim Shel Ma'ala. So for some reason in these 3 places it's referring also to that, and that's why it's got double one, because Yerushalayim with a yud implies 2. It's like
is that Ma'ala like up or Ma'ala?
yes, the upper. No, Ma'ala with an ayin, meaning the upper Jerusalem, the one in heaven. So that's what's being hinted. Okay, but usually it's written without a second yud, but it's that you still say it as if there's a yud there. That's why you'll see the vowels. You can see the vowels on this page because Yerushalayim. Can you see under the lambda there's 2 vowels?
Yeah.
Because the yud's missing, right? So Yerushalayim, because you have to the vowels to know how to say it. And where did it go? El HaYevusi. Not just Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim itself was mostly captured already, but the Yevusi was a Canaanite tribe who had an area in Yerushalayim, and that's what it was called. Yoshev Haaretz. They lived in the land. Means they were original inhabitants they were original Canaanites. They're called indigenous. That's what it means. Yoshev Haaretz. They'd always lived here for hundreds of years. Okay. Ayoy Mele David, Lamar. And he said, presumably means they said, the head of the Yevusim, said to David as follows, Loi tavayeno, you can't come here. Ki im hesircha ha'ivrim v'hapischim, until you remove the blind and the lame.
Oh, we had this before. Do we not?
Blind and lame. We have the, no, even Mephibosheth was Pisach, lame, we mentioned him yesterday, right? The cripple, right? You've got to remove the blind and the lame. Lamar.
Isn't it, what's it called? Yitzchak?
Oh, how do you know that? We never discussed this.
We never did that?
No, you must have learned something tomorrow. So the question is, who are these lame and blind people, and why does David have to remove them? You can't get. Lamar saying, "Lo yavot David Hema." In other words, saying, David, you can't come here until you remove the blind and the lame. Who they are, no one really knows. Like, what sort of strange story is that? Yeah. So I think someone to learn that this was like the tactics of putting the women and children in the front line, knowing that no Israeli soldier is going to shoot them, and then that's just how they win wars, right? They win because
it doesn't work.
Doesn't work. It works some way. They put their bombs in kindergarten, so we have to give them a tap on the roof to tell them we're coming. You know, there's all sorts of tactics they use. Okay, so their plan. He said, here, there's a blind. You're going to fight these blind and lame, and then we'll go all our troops behind them. That would be one way to read it. But yeah, okay. You know, reading it now in 2000, maybe they used these plans in those days. I don't know. You know, the Romans did the same thing when they attacked Masada. Right, the people at the front line were Jewish captives. And that's why the guys on Masada they're the guys who built the ramp. Right, so the Jews on that couldn't shoot them. Get it? So yes, but that's one suggestion. It's not what the medrash says. The Medrash says that these were actually idols. One made to look like a blind person, I suppose, like, with a walking stick or whatever. Another one was a cripple. And who were they representing? One represented Yitzchak, and one represented Yaakov. Why? Because Yitzchak was blind when he got old, and Yaakov was the one who was lame.
Wasn't he blinded from the tears of the
Correct.
angels?
And Yaakov was lame when he was hit by the Gidanosha, by the angel. And that's what they represented. And why would any pagan Yevusite have these represented them? Because they held like a copy of the peace treaty that Avraham and Yitzchak had signed to. This was our protection. Okay, that's one aspect. Now, my kids, well, I don't know if they're big now, but when they were little, they used to buy once a month a cartoon, like a collection of, not cartoon, comics, right? A From Haredi comic. Okay, so in order to justify allowing this into Haredi houses, the first comic had to be something really From, right? So it was always, otherwise, well, I stayed son, so how can you have that in your house, right? So you can understand Marvel comics, right, in the Haredi house. So to justify it, you had to have, so the front was always something from Tanach. It was a comic strip on some story in Tanach.
Really?
Yeah. It was called, what was the book called? Marshmallow. Every month you buy it in the Makolet called Marshmallow. I've still got a whole collection of them out, right? So one of them was on this story, and then it brought a medrash that I didn't know about. But subsequently I found out it's real. They bring there all the sources, where it's all from, right? And they just make things up. The other bits are just made up, right? But the first story is always from Tanakh, and there it says that the Yevus had a machine. It was a machine that was powered by a stream, which turned like swords or sticks that made it difficult to conquer the city. It was like
It's pretty advanced.
a spinning, right? A spinning.
Water wheel.
Yes, it was powered by water, right? But it spun a defense that you couldn't get through into the city gates, and that's what. It was also an idol. I think the people of the city thought this was Avodah Zarah was doing it. It was actually powered by some water system, but it didn't look like that. It looked like, you put it on, you press the button, and it went round. And if the Avodah Zarah is protecting us from these Jews who are trying to attack us, okay? You'll see how this is hinted to in the story later on. It could be both of these are put together. Why was this this machine that had this spinning axe or whatever, right, protecting the gates, look like a lane because it represented the Yitzchak who had agreed to make a peace treaty. So both aspects may explain. You'll see why that comes in a second. So far, the second medrash is very inventive. You'll see. Okay. So kids, in short, David is coming to the city and he's told us, no, you can't come. There's no way you can do it, right? Because we have a defense from this promise, and we have the physical defense of these idols that protect us from you. So. David, the first thing David did was he captured Es Metzudas Tzion, the fortress of Tzion. And where that is we don't know, but it says Ir David, that's the city of David. Now today there is a place called the city of David, assuming that those archaeologists are correct. I have no idea.
Is this where Zion comes from?
Yes.
Is this the first mention of Tzion? Maybe, I don't know. Right? But there was a fortress in that area. Today we call that, well, in the times of the Tanakh, they call that Ir David, because later David made it into his capital, he had his palace there, and his government was there. So it's then called the city of David, but that's the first place they captured. So before he's capturing the Yevus, he captures this fortification of Tzion. So now,
The Yevus was Temple Mount?
I don't know, the area around there.
Okay.
I mean, yeah. But that's what we call today Ir David. That's now in David's hands, and that wasn't the problem, because that wasn't protected by this water machine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And David said on that day, Kol makeh Yevusi, anyone who strikes the Yevusi, he needed someone to volunteer to somehow get into the city. Okay, so according to the Medrash, you need someone who would stop this magic propelling axe, which stopped them from getting in. Right now, if this was actually true that it was in the power was some water supply, all you had to do was cut off the water supply and it would come to a stop. Right, and it's not so difficult. You see, the people in the city, right?
What? It's not difficult to.
Well, it depends. If you know where the water supply is, then it could be easy to just divert it, right?
Maybe.
Okay. So now, I'm adding this because I once went on a tour of the water. The only water supply in the whole of the area of Yerushalayim, which is reasonable, is the one down in the Gichon, right? The Gichon there is the strongest water supply in the whole of the Judean area. Right? That's one of the reasons why they built Yerushalayim here, right? Because that's you need your water. Okay, the Gichon, the spring that goes through the tunnel that Shaul HaMelech built, and then it comes onto the Shiloach, which is where it's kept.
Mikveh there.
Now, I always had this problem, which is
It's right here.
Yeah.
how do you protect water supplies?
What?
What I mean is you can't have the water supply on the top of the hill
Oh.
because water doesn't go uphill. The water always is generally somewhere towards the bottom of the
Just
hill,
go-
right?
just go.
You can't build the fortifications at the bottom of the hill because they're very easy to climb over, right? What was always done is the fortifications at the top of the hill, and your water supply, you just hope that no one started up with you, and then you went out of the city and you got there during the day, right? And at night time, you close the gates, and anyone to steal your water. In any case, the water's flowing the whole time. There's not a problem, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But in order to protect the water supply of Yerushalayim, they built a fortification. It's still, you can still see as you go out of the what's it called? Out of Shara Ashpot, right? Right. You can see the remnants, right? Of the. You have to go further down, right? There's you can see the remnants. I've got to show you of a huge fortification. I've never seen anything big like that. The stones are massive, like stones like as wide as this, wider than this room, right? Fortifying this place, and that connected to the walls, and he went uphill.
Oh, that's the stuff on like this side of the wall, like outside the old city, like right next to the walls.
That's the beginning of that fortification,
Wow,
which
that
went
speaks-
all the. That means the city was higher up, the stream was down at the bottom, and they built a fortress around the stream, and that fortress was attached to the city. Okay, so they actually had a protection around the water, and then you couldn't get it. Right, but you can't stop water flowing, right? It's a way that you can get the water, but if you want to stop other people getting the water, you have to direct that water so it flows into the city. And that's what Shaul HaMelech did. When the Assyrians came to attack, he wanted to stop them having the water, as well as we can have it, but you'll have it as well. You can't what do you do? It's going to flow out somewhere. So he directed so it would flow into the city, and then they would have these enormous storage baths where they could, over the winter, store all the water for the summer, and that's what the Shiloach is. Right? But now we're talking about Shiur, where it didn't have that, but there were still walls protecting it so they could get to it. And okay, now if you go into that place, there, the city of David, yeah, they show you that in ancient times that water supply, how you got it from the city, was a vertical pipe. Right, and that way, it was a way of accessing the water without people being able to get in the city. It was like a vertical pipe, right? And you could lower
A well.
it was like a well, right? You could lower your buckets into it, right? But there's no way to get into the city. And that, according to that report, is what David is saying over here. It says like this: anyone who goes in, the yiga batzinor, and will reach the pipe. Someone's going to get into the city. That's the best way to get in. Anyone who can Spider-Man up the sides of this well, right? Because the well opens somewhere to the opens and eventually flows into the Dead Sea. Okay, so it's got an opening there. Only this is vertical shaft, like 30 feet high, and we can into the city can get that because we've got walls all around it. But there's an opening at the bottom of the well. You can get in there and climb up that back. You can at night get in the city and then secretly open the gates from inside, and then we've captured the city. Got it? Okay, so that's the suggestion of what this pipe is. Okay? Of course, the Medrash suggests that this pipe is not that pipe, but is the pipe that supplied the axe. Okay, so
the same.
it could be the same, but it's not really. According to the Medrash, to yiga batzinor means to touch the pipe, means to take the pipe and cut it, because the water supply is going to this machine, and we break that water supply off, then you're fine, right? According to archaeology's way of reading this, it's actually, it really just means, it doesn't mean to cut the pipe, right? It means to, it's not really a pipe in the sense like a ceramic pipe, it's just shaped, like, which is just the what do you call it? The well, the cylinder of the well is the sinor, which has been described here, and if he gets there, then he'll be able to get in and climb up. Okay, all right. So David is saying anyone who does that, the esa pischim, the esa ivrim, and what is he? And also these two idols, senue nefesh David, which David abhors. David hates them because they're either because they're avodah zarah, or because they're the ones that protect the city, or the ones who declare this peace treaty. That's why David can't stand them. Then what about them? It doesn't say what.
Why is he talking in third person?
Leader.
Okay.
All right. Then what will David do? It doesn't say. So when this story is repeated in Divrei Yomim, it says he will become a general. That's what it means. And David promises to promote anyone who has the courage to do this and climb, or however you describe it. He's either climbing up the well, or he's breaking off the water supply, or doing both, and that way allowing entrance into the city. So if you do that, then it says, it doesn't say the story. It doesn't say who did it. Eventually somebody did do it. And so in the stories it brought in Divrei Yom, it says that Yoav was the one who did it. Yoav was the only one who had the courage to do this, or the strength to Spider-Man up the wall, or whatever it was. And then Yoav went in and opened the gates of Yerushalayim, of Yevus, for their people. Al Kain Yomru. This is why people say Al Kain Yom is like a pitgam. Pitgam means an expression.
Yeah.
In ancient
This is the
Judea,
origins of an
this is
expression.
this is the origins of a certain expression that many people don't understand. Where does this come from? Why do people say it? We had one before. Hagam Shaul HaMelech. That's an expression. What does it mean? Why, I never expected this guy who was in my class in school and never even became a judge. Right? So in Hebrew you would say Hagam Shaul HaMelech. Is Shaul also a prophet? Where does that come? It comes from a story where the same thing happened to Shaul. So this is an expression which is as follows: Iver v'piseach lo yava el habayis. The blind and the lame, he cannot come into the house. So apparently, I've never heard anyone say this in Hebrew, but people used to say this as an expression. And what did it mean? It meant there's something in the way, and that's why you can't get in here, right? So we say there's a blind and lame, and that's why you can't get in the house. Where did it come from? Blind and lame? No, as poor as church mice. Where does that guy? It comes from somewhere, right? What are church mice? Why are church mice poor? Why,
Church mice?
That's usually never heard that expression. People say, what's it got to do with the price of tea in China? You say that?
I've heard of it.
You've heard that expression. English people say that. There's a reason why these expressions come, because there's some story about tea in China, right? So this is where this expression comes from. The blind, we're not saying the blind and the lame can't come in the house. No. The blind and the lame, not they can't come in the house, he can't come in. It means somebody who wants to come in the house can't come because of the blind and lame who's in the way.
Is this talking about the cripple from last time? No, I'm joking.
Okay. Right.
Cripple King died.
This was added.
It wasn't the Cripple King died. The cripple, no, those are two different people with similar names. The guy who died was Ish Boishe. The cripple was his nephew, Mephi Boishe. That was yes. Okay, Pasuk Test.
This was added. The sentence was added after.
Yes, I presume this sentence was added by the editors of the Tanach.
Yeah.
Whoever you presume they are, you can make your own opinion on that. But it doesn't seem that. I mean, it depends how quickly this became an expression, right? Could be very soon, and therefore whoever wrote the Sefer in the first place, right, was, let's say, David HaMelech himself. Yeah, it could be. Sometimes the expressions don't take a long time to.
How come they could kill these guys, like not go by the covenant of Abraham?
So we said because it only lasted 3 generations. Because that's when we said my children, my grandchildren, my great grandchildren, and there was none left. So they still claimed the protection of this thing, but David knew it expired.
100 years ago.
Yeah. No, it was. Apparently, the great grandchildren could still be alive, but now none of them are alive anymore.
Wait, no, his great grandchildren would be the 12 whatchamacallits of Abraham.
The great grandchildren of Abraham, right? Well, he was one of the great grandchildren of Rabbi Melech on the other side.
Oh, Rabbi
So
Leader.
as long as the great grandchildren of one side were still alive, both sides were held to the treaty, I guess. Right? It's true, there were no great grandchildren of Abraham and Yitzchak alive, for sure.
Were there great grandchildren? This was the daughter of Asher, Sarah.
No. By the time Sarah. Okay, but she was alive. Yeah, okay, I don't know. Yeah,
Okay, we just push it to the
I don't
side.
know. Okay. Alright. So, Ayeshiv Dabba Mitzuda, and David lived in the Mitzuda, in the fortress. Which fortress? The one that was built in Ir David, possibly protecting the water. I don't know. Vayikra La, and he called it Ir David. And that's where the name Ir David comes from. And the time that David first settled there as a conquering the whole of Yerushalayim. Even David Saviv, and David built. Vayiven, he built Saviv around Min Hamiloi Vavoisa. Well, those are difficult words. Milo is from the word Malay. Malay means
A lot. Or up.
full. Better. Full.
What's this?
Full.
For which word?
Harbe is a lot. Malay is full.
Malay. Like,
Malay. It doesn't really mean a lot. It's used similarly, right? You know, but Malay means it's full. Might only be a little. If it's a small cup will be Malay, but it's only a little bit, right? But Harbe is a lot. Malay means full. Now, the Milo is landfill. Do you hear?
Yeah.
Yerushalayim is a mountain. You can't build very much on it. It's a mountain. Okay, if you want to build a city, you need somewhere flat, like New York, which is where most cities are built. London, near the coast, where things are flat.
Yeah.
When you've got a mountain, you can't build very much.
Yeah.
So, what did King Herod do to build a nice big temple? He did landfill. He built 4 walls on the outside, filled it all in with soil, and that way you can have a flat. So it seems that David did something similar to areas filled. That's why he called it Milo, means it was filled in. It wasn't natural. He built walls, he filled it all in, and then he can expand his capital in this place which doesn't naturally lend itself to urban buildings. Vavoisa means the word bayit. Bayit means a house, but it can also mean inside.
It's in Jerusalem?
It's in Jerusalem, right?
I missed
It
that
means
part.
inwards. It means when we talk about the Oroin in the Mishkan, we talk mibayis or michutz. Michutz means the outside. Bayis means the inside. Right? Even though we use the word bayis to mean a house, right? Because it's inside, but the word bayis actually means inside as opposed to outside. So it means from the landfill inwards, means there was a wall which was used to fill in that whole area. David settled and built his capital and houses and administrative municipal area of Jerusalem, and that was all around the fortress of Zion, called Ir David, the city of David. Okay? Yelech David, and David went haloich v'gadol. That means getting, haloch v'gadol goes together, getting bigger, gradually becoming more and more powerful, more and more famous, not just here, but abroad as well. His name and his activities became more known. Hashem Elokei Tzevakot Imo, God, the Lord of Tzevakot, which means, usually translated as hosts, it really means armies. We describe God as who was the first one to invent that name? I don't remember. Chana, the beginning of the Book of Shmuel, she was the first one to call God Tzevakot, and it's become adopted. I don't know when you use it or when you don't use it. It's a very rare use of God's name, right? Hannah used it specifically because she was praying for a child, and she said, God, you have created armies of millions, billions of people. Can't you spare one child for me? So that's where that's why she used that name for God. Why it would be used in this context, I leave for you to try and explain. Okay, we'll leave that to pay, and we'll carry on after Yom Tov.
Oh, come on. 8 more minutes.
What's 8 more minutes? We finished 3 minutes ago. You just come now.
I know, but it's 5:22. It's 5:22. It's not
Is it?
5:30.
Yeah.
We had 5 points.
No, we usually have 5:30.
Okay, we'll do it to the next summer. Vayishlach Hiram. So we said this is an example of David's fame. David became more and more strong. It doesn't mean over Israel, because David's controlling it. It means even abroad, he became greater. Not that he controlled it. We don't know about David fighting, that'll come later on, right? The moment just means his fame spread.
Yeah.
And so the king called Hiram, he was the king of Tsar. Tsar is translated as Tyre, Tyre. Tsar, which is a town in Lebanon. Okay? And they were Phoenicians who invaded and traded the Mediterranean, and he was the king of Tsar. It was known, there's even a currency called Kesef Tsuri. Today the world trades in dollars, and the ancient world traded in Kesef Tsuri, money that came from Tsur, because they were sailors. It's called Tyronian blue, right? Means, or Tyrian purple, and these numbers, the color Tcheles is known in Goyish literature from Tsar, because they were the ones who shipped it, who found it on the Mediterranean. Okay, they were very wealthy people. So even this king sent, he sent Malachim, messengers, El David, and he sent with him Ve'atzei Arazim, which is cedar trees. Why? Because cedars grow in Lebanon. That's why the cedar tree is the emblem on the Lebanon flag. Correct. A cedar tree is really just a small type of sequoia. Right? You know what sequoia is? Those are the biggest trees in the world.
Oh, sequoia.
Redwoods,
Yes.
sequoia, sorry. So a cedar tree is really the same thing, it's just not as big. Right? But those are the trees which are very, very tall and straight. And you use them for building. And nowadays people use arches for building big buildings. In the old days they didn't do that. So how do you build a wide building without supports in the middle? You have to have very big beams. So that's what David wanted to do. David wanted to build a palace. He wants to build a temple, right? So he needs wood. So the king, it's interesting, David didn't even ask him for it. He just sent him as a present.
Right, good.
Knowing, could be. He knows that David wants a palace. You want to be friends, right? So this is a sign of David's popularity.
Yeah.
That he wants to live at peace with David, correct? So he sent this wood, and also Charashei 8, not just the wood, we also sent the carpenters. A Charash 8 means a guy who works with wood, would know how to cut it and shape it and do exactly, and use the best part of the wood, etc.
Spies.
Right? V'charashei even, that's the same thing of stone, because obviously a palace isn't all wood, the wood is for the roof,
Stone
right?
masons.
But the stone masons, good. This is where I think, if I'm not mistaken, that the Masons, meaning the Freemasons, consider this fellow as the first, he's their,
Hiram.
I think, Hiram, the king of Saul. Check it
I
out,
thought he was,
right?
should have been like a Jew.
Well, he was a friend of David, right? There is actually a tradition, you want to know, that this Hiram that was actually the same as Yehuda's father-in-law. I think one of Yehuda's had a friend called Hiram, the same guy. Yes, it was like 400 years earlier, but I won't worry about that. Even more. They don't say it? Doesn't say there?
I don't see anything.
Who do they consider the founder of their movement? Because they're Masons. They're the original Masons. They're expert Masons.
Underneath Jerusalem, they've got all stone mason stuff. Like in the
Starting in like the 1300s.
tunnels or whatever, the Solomon.
Hey, I'm ready to hit the ground running.
No, I'm not saying when it really started. Who did they claim?
Yeah,
Because, you know,
I'm looking. Mythical
Yeah.
foundational stories.
No?
I don't see anything.
No,
about
Hiram?
it.
Okay, anyway.
Oh, I do.
What did it
Hiram
say?
Abiv.
Hiram?
Yeah.
No, Hiram. Maybe it's the same Hiram.
Maybe.
King of Tsar?
Doesn't say. It just
Doesn't
says
say.
Hiram Abiv.
Ah, okay. Hiram. Okay, so he sent the carpenters and the stonemasons with Charashei Even Kir, which is, Kir is a wall. It means stone for making walls. I suppose there are different types of stonemasons. There's wall stonemasons and different types of
Sculptures.
stonemasons. Okay. Yivnu Bait LeDavid, and they built a house for David. So they built David's palace. Vayeda David, and David knew. Ki hechino Hashem lemelech, that God had appointed him as king, Al Yisrael. Very interesting. How did David know? Beforehand he didn't know, because only Shmuel told him that God wants you to be king. But this verified what he thought all along, was the fact he saw here hashgacha, that a king of a neighboring country who nobody asked you to do anything comes and he's very powerful and rich and he sends the best carpenters in the world to build my palace. Clearly there's a hashgacha in there. He sees God's hand behind that. It's not just coincidental. This is God doing it. He knew it must be that God wants me to be king because he sent the guys to build my palace.
Yeah.
Right? So it strengthens what he already knew. That's the name of this week's parasha, right? He elevated his kingdom, ba'avur. He didn't take the credit for himself. Not because I'm a big tzaddik, boy, I'm such a great guy, that's why God wants me to be king. No, it's because of Klal Yisrael, because God loves the Jewish people so greatly. That's why he's elevated me to be king over the Jewish people, and even our neighbors want to live at peace with us and be nice to us. Good? Can we stop there?
No more.